Hey guys, welcome to Cricket Fanatics Magazine. I'm your host Khalid Mohidin, and this is Legends with Ravi. Now, as per usual, I'm going to be introducing the show and then getting Ravi on the show to introduce our guest. So basically, we've been had quite a tough week and quite a hectic week. A lot of work was done because we needed to get out our new episode. Our new issue of the magazine, and obviously quite a few episodes as well of my daily show, etc. So, without further ado, I think I'm going to introduce Ravi. And obviously, with everything that has been happening recently and all the stuff that he's been watching on Netflix, I think this is the reason for his theme song. So, here we go. Never doubt that you're the one, and you can have your dream. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around. So, guys, that's the Ravi song, and we all know why. I don't know if you guys know why, if you've been seeing
Maybe
that
they should know
recently.
why. But why do you
Yeah,
think that?
so my obviously people that know the movie from a long time ago, obviously, and then will know what movie that comes from. But with a recent addition to Netflix's platform, Cobra Kai has been released from YouTube. YouTube stopped producing it after they canceled the original series, and now they are back over onto Netflix. So that's a crazy thing that's happening at the moment. I see we got Ayanda in the comments here. He says he's back
Yeah,
after
welcome,
4 weeks.
Ayanda.
Welcome back. We've been waiting for you back in the comments, so thank you for coming on.
Great to have
So
one of our loyal fans back.
yeah. So Ravi, introduce our guest. Let's get into this.
No, absolutely. So I always thought I need to choose a song about competitiveness and aggression and competing for a spot. And I think this specific guest is it's quite apt to have him on the show tonight because he was basically competing with quite a few openers at the time, namely Andrew Hudson, who cemented his place, but due to poor performances, Andrew Hudson lost the place, and Adam Bacher, who had significant weight of runs on the domestic circuit as well as SAA setup at the time. We're talking as far as 25 years ago. Ended up making his debut for South Africa against Pakistan. One of the first, in fact, I think the second Pakistani toured South Africa post-democracy. And what's great about that specific tour, and we'll unpack that later, is that Shoaib Akhtar also made his debut in that series as well, and he was gassing it at about 150 odd k's an hour as well. So a fantastic time to make your debut against the soon-to-be number one fast bowler in the world. Yeah, we'll talk about his milestones and his many accolades as we go along in the show.
Yeah, and as you guys know out there, that this show and this platform is all about telling amazing stories. And I think tonight you're going to hear quite a few of them. So without further ado, let's introduce our guest to the show. Hi, Adam. Welcome to the show.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Very well, thanks. And you?
Nice to meet you, Ravi. And never let the facts get in the way of a good story. Eh? it was India, not Pakistan.
Was it India in '96? That's right.
It was India, and you said you said a weight of runs. Now I've just got weight on my side.
I think I could attest to that as well, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Great stuff. And I remember, in fact, there was one particular event from the '96 tour that we'll certainly talk about a little bit later, and it involved the dismissal of Sachin Tendulkar. In fact, we can even go into it right now. I mean, Adam Bacher pulled a phenomenal acrobatic catch of sorts. Where were you standing at the time? Was it deep mid-wicket or...
Ravi, I was square leg on the boundary, basically just underneath the Oaks, or the old Oaks at Newlands. And, anyone who's been to Newlands, played or watched, that part of the ground is just incredibly festive. And those spectators have been treated to probably the best batting display that has ever been seen on our soil by Sachin Tendulkar and Mohammad Azharuddin. Both got hundreds. They came into bat at a time when India were long gone out the game, and with nothing to lose, they just put on the most incredible batting display, both of them in their own way. And Azharuddin was already out. Tendulkar was last man there.
He was on 169.
169, yeah. And I was about 10 meters off the boundary. And he was seeing the ball like a big beach ball. I mean, and Brian McMillan round the wicket, bowled a short half tracker, and Sachin's eyes lit up and he hit a flat shot. And I just spotted it. I didn't really see it properly. And then all of a sudden it got close to me and I just dived backwards with one hand and it stuck. It was just unbelievable. But for me, the favorite thing was...
We thought you lost it in the lights. Sorry, not the lights, the sun.
The sun, yes, yeah. But the great part about it, Ravi, is that no one remembers that half an hour later, I went into bat and I got a duck. So long may you remember the catch and not what happened straight after that.
So why I remember that match so fondly is that my dad was rooting for India and I was, of course, rooting for South Africa. And India were having a terrible time during that tour. The first test, they got skittled for 66 and 100 respectively.
Right. Yeah.
And Alan was having the greatest series of his life at the time. I think he was ripping through the Indian batting order.
Yeah.
And then at Newlands, suddenly you saw a bit of resistance, as Adam quite rightfully said, from Mohammad Azharuddin and Sachin Tendulkar. They put on, I think it's still a record that's standing till this day. A significant partnership. The top order collapsed, but these two came into bat and made a lot of hard work for the South African attack at the time. And that catch was a blinder. I remember all of us were in disbelief. We were actually in the Kruger watching the match.
Oh, really?
I thought they went over you. I was convinced because I just saw you connected, and I was like, okay, there's a man out there. I don't know if he's going to make it, or then suddenly took it.
Well, you know, the best part about it was Sachin's reaction, and that I'll cherish forever. And he was just staring in disbelief. You know, he saw 200 on the board easily for him. So no, it was a very special moment for me. Definitely one of the highlights.
No, absolutely. And I mean, you've played in quite a few fantastic inbound tours as well as outbound tours of Australia, particularly. That tour of Australia for me, while we came out short in that particular series, we lost the Test series as well as the triangular. That time they used to have the Carlton and United triangular and the World Series. That used to be the thing that we all used to look forward to that time of the year. And
I've got quite an interesting story about that.
Oh, please.
That World Series, yeah. I mean, you know, it was quite a tough time to be on tour. You know, if you toured Australia and you didn't play in Test and one-day games, it was actually a tough environment to be in, because they didn't play the Test matches and then the one-day games. It was all mixed within each other. And at that stage, I was pretty much seen as a Test player. I was dying to get a go in the one-dayers, but it just, you know, it wasn't happening. And we had already played 2 Test matches, and we had lost. Yeah, we had lost at Sydney, so we were 1-0 down. But we were doing hell of a well in the one-day series. I actually hadn't had a medal for like 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, and it was getting to the end of the one-day series. It was now the final, best out of 3. Ourselves in Australia and New Zealand had been knocked out. And we were doing so well that we already qualified for the final, you know, way ahead of the last few games. And the rumor going around the team in Perth was that the youngsters, or the guys who hadn't been tested, would get a game because it didn't really count. And I went into bat at Nets the day before, and I still didn't know whether I was playing. And I went to Hansi and I asked him, and he said, no, unfortunately, you're not. And I was really upset about it. What happened was Mark Boucher and Mackay and Tini made their debut, and it was just such a special moment. I was really upset I didn't get a go. I think they were trying maybe Lance up the order or Daryl Cullen. And anyway, I was very short of match practice, and we had the all-important 3rd Test match coming. So the final, as I said, it was a best out of 3. We were 1-1. And it was, the final was on the decider was on a Sunday, and Ghulam Raja, the greatest manager that has ever been involved in cricket, organized for me to fly up to Adelaide on that Sunday to go play in a club game just to get a medal. And I'll never forget. He said we were leaving for the airport at 11. The one-day game with the final was supposed to start at about 2 or so. And he said, "Look, I'm just going to phone the management, the coach, etc., and just tell them that we're off to the airport, and pack your stuff, make sure it's ready. I'm picking you up in half an hour." And I was all ready to go to Adelaide. And he phoned me about 10 minutes later. He said, "Let's just put that on hold. You're playing today." So from not thinking about any one-day cricket, I ended up playing in the deciding game of the World Series final in front of a packed crowd at Sydney. It was too soon to actually get nervous. Otherwise, I promise you, I wouldn't have been able to step out of my room.
I might be wrong, but did you score 45 in that match?
Yeah. I had the best fun of my life. We lost. So everyone was down, and I mean, because we were doing so well as a one-day side, but I was sort of like inwardly quite ecstatic that I had the opportunity to play, and just it was so much fun. So just one of the weirdest experiences of my cricket life.
My goodness. No, I can only imagine. And I remember the Carlton United series quite fondly. And like I said before, the younger fans that follow Cricket Fanatics magazine will be only accustomed to seeing South Africa actually win in Australia. But there used to be a time where we were narrowly short, and there's always room for a bit of controversy. One such moment, and I think you might have been quite close to the action at the time, was when Hansi put the stump at the change room door. I don't know if you could recall that specific story. What exactly happened?
Well, that was that was the second controversial incident of the tour. The Australians, if you can remember, they found him stepping on the cricket ball. I don't know if you remember that, with his studs.
Yep.
And the Australians are just pure tacticians when it comes to putting pressure on teams. And they didn't release that footage straight away. They waited until it was the most crucial part of the tour, and then they will ask him at an arbitrary place at an airport, a few weeks later, about that incident. And but it was the last day of our tour, and we were in a very strong position in Adelaide. It's probably the best batting wicket in the world. So I mean, it is difficult to bowl out a side in the fourth innings there. And we had the whole day to bowl them out. Mark Taylor, who hadn't made a run for probably 3 years,
he made runs.
He made 160, and Mark Waugh, we couldn't dislodge Mark Waugh. And Mark Waugh had a strange incident where he was off balance slightly, and he tipped the bails with his bat. And I sort of saw it on replay afterwards. I thought, he actually it wasn't part of the shot. But, it was such a frustrating day. We were very tense, and we thought that he should have been given out within the rules of the game.
I think we all at home wanted him to be out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just couldn't get him. I think he got 100 or so, and that was the difference in the test match. And we couldn't bowl them out. And I think Hansi, as the captain, so much pressure on a team in Australia. We had never won there, and it had been a long, very, very hard tour. And I think he just lost his composure, grabbed the stumps, probably as a memorabilia, and then decided to put it through the umpire's door. So, it was a very tense end to that series, but we had a good joke about it afterwards.
Yeah. So, I mean, in your opinion, you felt Mark was definitely not out. It wasn't out yet at all.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it wasn't as if he was playing a shot and fell off balance. That's clearly out into the stumps. A bit like Johnny Bairstow, I think, did the other day. Yeah. It was just I thought he had actually played the shot already, and just by mistake, just lost where he was and just walked into the stumps or what have you. So
yeah, because we felt that was the turning point right there. If we got him out at that point, that would have been game over for Australia.
Yeah, and that was the old Adelaide Oval before they put up all the stands, and that was just a very special experience to play in a place like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Khalid?
So what I want to ask you, obviously, because I've been listening to this now, and for me, it's obviously I didn't get to actually watch those games as intended, like Ravi said, and experience that. But I want to know. I like to hear the stories about what it was like for you to play with the likes of like Gary Kirsten, opening the batting with him, for example, and against players like Shane Warne. I mean, we know that he was the arguably the greatest, one of the greatest spinners of all time,
Mhm.
and obviously we would like to know those stories. What is it like to face him in his home conditions as well?
Yeah, well, he was just an unbelievable player. Every interview I watch about him, I think Ali did a great interview of him. I don't know if you guys have watched that at all. In his In Conversation, I've read his book recently. Just what a mind, and I don't think people actually realize how hard he worked. If you read his book, and you know, when he pitched up at Terry Jenner, who was the Australian spin wizard coach, with a six-pack, couple of crates of beer, and said, "Teach me how to play." And Terry said, "Listen, we're not going to do it like that. It's going to be hard work. It's going to take you 2 years to learn how to bowl 6 proper leg spinners." The amount of work that he put in, I mean, I've just got so much respect for him. He went through injury after injury and had to rehab himself. He was the ultimate competitor on the field. And he would set you up. He wasn't rude on the field. It wasn't ugly stuff. It was just playing with your mind. And that's where he was so great. I will say that facing him as an opening batsman was a lot better than walking in at number 4, 5, 6 and having to face him first ball. So, as an opening batsman, if I got to face him, I probably had about 20 or 30 on the board. So, and you could almost be a bit more aggressive as an opening batter because, you didn't have to save the lower order or what have you. But to face a guy like that coming in for your first delivery and the pressure's on and he's got his tail up and, he's saying a few words out there and the rest of the team are on you, that was something that was like a cauldron to be in that kind of environment.
Yeah, because
I always felt that one year was the captain that never was. I just felt he was the natural successor to Steve Warne. He called it, and of course, the mantle went to Ricky Ponting, as we know. But
my great friend Nick Pothis, who unfortunately, Nick had a great career. He was such a class act, but he just lost out to Mark Boucher in a very tight race to see who was going to be the next keeper. Nick was as tough as nails, and he ended up playing 1 or 2 one-day internationals with a guy that level of mental toughness and skill. It was very unfortunate, but the positive for Nick is that he had around about 5 or 6 years of playing with Shane Warne at Hampshire. And what he told me about Shane Warne's captaincy, I mean, it's just unbelievable. I think that we sort of experienced it in South Africa when I was fortunate enough to play with Ken Rutherford as a captain.
Yes.
And, in South Africa, we are conservative in our approach. We first generally, it's always been the way that we've played the game for whatever reason. I think we're a bit formalized in our structure through schools, and we first don't want to lose. And maybe that's a factor of all the rivalry in the school competitions, because to lose to your rival, it's the worst thing in the world. We don't really teach that freedom of, don't worry if you lose the game. You've got to set yourself up for a win. And Ken Rutherford was like that, the greatest captain I've ever played, because he was never scared of losing.
I used to enjoy watching the Lions play at Newlands. Ken, Jeffrey Toyano was there with you at the time. Clive Eckstein as well. That was a strong team. That was a particularly strong team. David Tabricka as well.
Yeah.
But sorry, Khalid, you were about to ask something.
No, well, you mentioned something, but about playing that defensively and not playing with an attacking kind of mindset. When I spoke to Adam Bacher in the week, he said he spent some time in Australia, and I asked him what are some of the learnings that he took away from that, and that is one of the things that he said. He said that they automatically just want to attack, and whether they're going to lose the game and whether they're not going to lose the game, they're going to put everything behind them. Is that something that you feel that you can, that we can bring into our game, and how do we actually bring that into our game and teach that to our youngsters?
Absolutely. Look, you've got a DNA as a country, I guess, in the way that the style that you play. So you don't want to be who you're not. And I think we've used our strengths, our character and our strengths to certain degrees. But I think it arrives because, like I said, it's our school system, how seriously we take it. Maybe too seriously. I've got no doubt it's too serious. I think that we've lost a little bit of club cricket in our structure, and clubs really where you learn about the skills of playing the game from the older guys. So we've lost that in our cricket. There's no doubt about it. My son is playing at school now. I watch it. It's ultra competitive, and you don't want to lose, which is not the right way, and that probably filters right up through our cricket because of that kind of formal structure that we got. It's not loose. It's not clubs. You're not learning from older adults and taking risks and seeing the way that they captain sides. I mean, you just have to think back to, it's. I don't think people remember, but when we played New Zealand in that semi-final, when our good old South African boy Grant Elliott from St. Stithians hit Dale Steyn into the stands for 6. What people don't realize is their captain, Brendan McCullum. You talk about being aggressive and attacking when the pressure is on. When we won the toss and batted, I think he started with 3 or 4 slips in a gully in a one-day international. And that's just the way they think about it. They are just attacking, and they want to get wickets all the time. They don't go into defensive mode, and only when you can't lose the game can you afford to attack. And I think we can learn a lot, but it would have to start from the way that we're teaching our youngsters the game.
So in that way, would you say that strict instructions would have been given to guys like Herschel Gibbs and people that play, who are known to play a more attacking role?
No, I think that, on a one-on-one player point of view, the guys like Herschel, and if you've got flair players, that wouldn't restrict them. It's more the tactics of the team.
Okay.
As an example, when do you declare?
Yeah.
I think I remember Hash was captain, and he was pretty inexperienced captain, and batting, you could just see that the pressure of the possibility of losing was almost too great. And if you want to win, you've got to risk losing, and that's sometimes where we've been a little bit. It's not easy. I'm sitting here, you guys. When you've got the public on your case, and there's Twitter now, and there's social media, and you make a mistake, you got to be able to live with that, and you need support with that. So it's not an easy thing to do, and you need a lot of good support to have a system that can thrive in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny you mentioned that, because Khalid actually interviewed Dwayne Pretorius today, and he said more or less the same thing as well. There's pressures from all sides, particularly social media. The minute you make a mistake, everybody's on your case. Or the minute you take a specific stance, everybody's on your case.
Yeah, it's interesting. Hey, I spoke to Nick Pothers. He was out here recently. He was the assistant coach for the England under-19 side in the series over here, the World Cup. And he said they've seen quite a few, players really battle with depression. And when I asked him why is it, he said it's this influence of social media can be so destructive for the guys if they're not helped out with how to go about it. It's wonderful. You score runs. You want to see people writing great things about you. But what happens when things aren't going so well? How do you react? What do you do? It's very difficult. You got to know how to ride that wave, and otherwise it can destroy you.
But that means a dude like Virat Kohli must be on a hell of a different plane, because you've got 1 billion people that's expecting something from you. Social media, I'm sure over there must be exploding. Overseas is certainly exploding. I mean, how is he performing at that level? I mean, he's just, I mean, wow. I mean, Tendulkar is possibly the better comparison, I would say, but he just man phenomenal. What do you make of?
It would be great to ask him that question. How does he handle social media? Because he's making a lot of money out of it. He's got all these sponsors. He keeps on, giving them airtime. But how does he really handle his personal social media? So that's probably through, there's probably a manager that's actually managing that, even though it's coming from his account. The story in India, I mean, that's a different league altogether. If you can remember in the early days of Dhoni, when India lost, they didn't qualify for the final stage of the World Cup. I can't remember exactly which World Cup. It was one of Dhoni's, they were burning effigies of him in the streets.
Yeah. I think Ganguly got it worse, actually.
I mean, it's great to do well in India, but when things aren't going so well, wow, you can feel it. But that's to be very interesting to see how those guys are handling those pressures.
Yeah, I mean, they have so many fans of cricket that some of them even support other teams like South Africa, and I've never seen so many Indian fans that love the Proteas so much. It's insane.
We have plenty of Indian fans watching us right now, actually.
I mean, there's that show my son was showing me on Netflix where they it's that show about the Mumbai Indians in 2018. In their dressing room, the auction. It's so interesting. It's for the first time you can sort of get a feeling about how what an important competition and how important cricket is in those people's lives. It's just absolutely phenomenal.
Can I ask you? Sorry, man. Adam, can I ask you about that, because you are kind of at the beginning of that T20 craze. Like you saw cricket develop into something, and then T20 coming into the game. What was that like initially for you guys as players that thought that obviously Test cricket is obviously the sacred game, and then you have the ODI format, and then suddenly there's this new game that's coming onto the scene that everybody wants to put their money on and get invested in and going crazy about? How did you take that as you and your friends and guys and peers?
Well, we were, I think South Africa were actually at the forefront of T20 cricket, whatever you want to call it back then. We had a day at Newlands. It was a 20-over festival. There were four or six, 3 sides, whatever, and you played during the day. It was a festival atmosphere, and then the last 2 teams made it to the final, and you played 20 or 25 overs. That was almost the first kind of cricket like that, and it was a huge success, a massive. And then we started with the league. I mean, I think we were one of the first ones to have a proper league. And you could see what was going to happen. We had a provincial game at the Wanderers where, we were at that stage for 45 over cricket, we were getting like 300, 400 people to the game. It was a joke. They had no idea how many people were going to come. Most of the people missed half the game because they couldn't get them through the turnstiles. They ran out of beer at the ground. They catered for 6,000 people. They got 18, 20,000 people.
Wow.
And then you knew you were onto something special. I think on the world stage in India, I think the Indians only really saw the potential of this when they came here to win the World Cup. I don't think they actually took it too seriously until that moment, and then it just absolutely exploded. I personally think that 20-over cricket is a magnificent game. To play it's more exhausting than a 50-over game, and that might sound strange because it's less than half the allotted overs and time. But there is never a second in that game where you are relaxing. If you're a bowler, your 6 balls feel like 20 balls because you're under so much pressure. You are running the whole game. You are it's very rare that you are ever out the game, because the other side can have a great over or you have a bad over and put you either out the game or back in the game from a ridiculous. I mean, just look at what happened the other day with Australia. They were against England. They were absolutely cruising. I think they had 9 wickets in hand, needing just to overrun the ball, and they lost. You know, because it's just one over that can actually change it, and that doesn't happen in the 50-over format. And I actually think, personally, I think 20-over cricket and Test cricket are brilliant for the game, and they're so complementary. The issue for me is always been the 50-over game. I think it's those bilateral series, especially in the subcontinent on flat wickets. To me, I'm not excited to watch that.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel that within the game when I was writing a lot of IPL reports still at my previous job, I would write a lot IPL reports and I will approach it the same way as I approach another game, and then you'll come towards the end. So my report will be done, and I'll be like, okay, cool, you know who's winning. And this was my first ever report that I was writing, and I switched my headlines and my intro probably 3 times during that game. I was like, who's gonna win, who's not gonna win? So yeah, back over to you, Ravi.
Absolutely, and you mentioned IPL, you mentioned T20 cricket. Is there any sort of captain or team? If there was a much younger version of Adam Bacher that was with us right now, is there any specific team, franchise, or captain you've taken a liking to that you could have potentially played under? Who would that be?
I would have loved to have experienced Dhoni's captaincy for sure.
It was brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Just that calmness of approach. It's just unbelievable. I wish I knew more about him and how, and I'd love to see a pro. I'm sure there are many, but I've just never seen it. How he approached the game and how he became so calm under pressure, and how he backed himself. That's to me one of the idols of the game. I just, when you're a captain, that camera, when things are going badly, that camera is focusing on you. And body language is so important. And Dhoni, for me, he can lift a team because of that calmness. So I would have loved to have played under him, and just absolutely any experience with the RPL, except being a bowler. I wouldn't have liked to have been a bowler, but I think it's wonderful. The guys, I speak to Chris Morris a lot. He's been very fortunate. They've really taken a fancy to him over there. And he actually sent me a message the other day. He said it is so hot where they are at the moment. So good luck to Chris. It's going to be a test in the UAE.
Yeah, you're playing in the desert. Yeah, that's
yeah, on flat wickets. Yeah, but it's going to be interesting because I don't think there are crowds. So I think that pressure element, and I think that's where India have been at such an advantage, because their young players are learning how to play under immense crowd pressure. It's just not the same. We can do whatever we want in our domestic cricket. We will never get crowds, and it's a huge difference. You'll never know. It's a different game under a capacity crowd, and I think they've got that advantage because the guys are so used to playing under that. It's no longer something that scares them.
Absolutely. Now, if you mentioned bowlers earlier, I mean, let's take you all the way back to 1997. You had the privilege of facing a young Shoaib Akhtar. I believe that was on debut in South Africa that specific year. The Pakistani tour was better.
We actually played him in Pakistan for the first time.
Oh, you played him beforehand in Pakistan already. But this was his official, his first time in South Africa, if memory serves.
Yeah. Yes.
What was it like? I mean, especially playing him on a wicket, on wickets which favored South African bowlers, particularly. One would think that they would have also favored him as well as Wasim Akram, as well as Waqar.
Yeah, I mean, what an attack! But we first saw Shoaib in Pakistan. So remember, we were one of the last teams to tour Pakistan before, unfortunately, chaos reigned over there. And we were the first team to win in Pakistan, a series.
That's
in about 50 or 60 years. We won the last test match. We defended a very low total.
Uncle Pat saved you guys, eh?
Pat got 70. He got bowled. I don't know if you guys remember. Mushtaq bowled him a googly. He was probably on about 30. And
it went through the wicket.
Yeah. But Pat, the kind of guy he was, he like, I knew there was a gap between the stumps there. It's not a big thing. And he ended up getting 70. That won us the series. Honestly, I mean, Pat was just incredible. But we played Shoaib in a warm-up game there, and Gary and I, it was on the flattest wicket that you could ever want to bat on as a batsman. And it's like the kind of wicket, probably I'm not going to wear a thigh pad because, it's just I'll never miss the ball. And this guy ran in from almost the boundary. And he hit me on the inside thigh so hard that about 3 weeks later, my muscles started to pull from the damage that he had caused there. It was quite nice to face him because you just needed to touch the ball, and it went for 4. But so we knew about Shoaib, and you knew that this was a guy who was something special. And then he came to South Africa and bowled on that quick wicket at the Wanderers, and it actually worked to their disadvantage. Once again, Pat and Mark Boucher, they drove the Pakistanis mad because Shoaib was bowling so fast. The keeper was standing so far back. If it went over the batsman's head, they would run 1.
Yeah,
and there was nothing that the Pakistanis, so they were going mad. Pat ended up scoring the most unbelievable century because he got under their skin. But I mean, that was a guy that you didn't mind so much facing him as an opening batsman, because they only really got interested when the ball started to reverse swing. And then you would see the real pace and so I felt so sorry for a guy walking in 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I mean, you just had no chance against him, and that was awesome to watch.
Now, unfortunately, and I think if memory serves, you mentioned the tour of Pakistan. I think you scored 96 at Sheikhupura, and I remember that ground for a number of reasons. The pitch ended up being waterlogged, if memory serves. I could be wrong.
Yeah, well, I mean, it not from the rain. I mean, it was a light rain, but there were holes in the cover, so it was an interesting place to tour, I must admit. I was. It was never to be to get those 3 figures for me. I got 96 twice. In the days of reviews, I could have got away with it because Mushtaq, I never nicked that ball. There's only so many times an umpire is going to turn down an appeal of Mushtaq. I mean, he was in the umpire's ear all the time.
Well, we just happened to have Mushtaq in the waiting room. Khalid, do you want to bring him? I'm just joking.
I mean, what a bowler! What a bowler! I mean, I never knew which way the ball was turning. I just guessed.
He had a crazy top spinner. I remember he gave
fantastic bowler. They had what an attack they had. They had Sachin Mushtaq, who was the first player, I think, spinner to really that we knew about that had the Dusra ball that went away from you. So, and then they had Wazim and who came and Waka played a bit. I don't think they were fit for all 3 games. They had really an incredible team.
No, that was a phenomenal team. And then obviously batting wise, you had Inzi, Yusuf Johanna at the time. He changed them to Mohammed Yusuf.
Yeah, I don't think he wasn't around then.
Was it Azhar Mahmood, perhaps?
Yes, Azhar Mahmood scored, I think, 200s against. He had a purple patch against us.
He likes scoring around.
I love watching Pakistan play cricket. I love their batsmen. They've got brilliant technique. They can always handle the pace. They've never been shy against the really fast stuff. They're a great cricket nation. And in 20-over cricket, I mean, they're phenomenal.
And I remember you scored 96 once more against Australia. If memory serves, I think the bowling attack comprised of a very young Glenn McGrath. We had Shane Warne, of course, and Jason Gillespie, to name a few. Who ended up getting you out in that particular?
He wasn't. He was like middle of his career, Glenn McGrath, and it was on a really difficult batting track at Centurion. So I'm going to blame Pat Simcox for me not getting 100. I'm going to blame squarely on him because
you didn't want a single.
It was a really quick wicket. They had a very funny attack that they came to South Africa with. They obviously came with McGrath and Jason Gillespie, two phenomenal opening bowlers, but then they didn't really have another seamer. So what they did is they had Greg Blewett in their team.
Yes.
And he was their fill-in seamer. So they had 3 seamers, 2 out-and-out quicks, and then 1, part-time bowler, not more than that. And then they had Warne and they had Michael Bevan. At that stage, he was in their test side and he was bowling left arm wrist spin. And yeah, it was a very strange attack. But they were tough to face on green wickets. I really thought we had overspiced our wickets. It just didn't suit the kind of selection that they had, and it gave them too much firepower with the wickets. So Pat Simcox came in as night watchman towards the end of the day, and the ball was going everywhere. And it was getting a bit dark. I was on 90. I was on 94, and one spat off a length at me and hit me in my bicep. A really nasty ball from McGrath. And Pat looked at the umpires and he said, "How can you continue? It's dark." And they took us off. I should have just carried on batting because, I was in form. Next morning, I woke up, my arm was finished from being hit. And it was a cloudy morning, and I batted for about 1.5 hours trying to get runs. I faced 10 overs of Glenn McGrath on the trot. I mean, he just didn't bowl a bad ball. Eventually.
What is your overnight score? What is your overnight score?
My overnight score was 94. We came in the next morning. It was really overcast. I remember facing Gillespie in the opening spell. He bowled me what looked like a juicy half volley, and I went for it. I thought, okay, that's 4 runs on the board. I missed it by about like this. It swung so much, and then I knew I was in trouble. And then Simo went out. I think Callis came in next. Went out straight away. We lost another wicket, so we were collapsing a bit. And then Hansie came in, and Warne was bowling from one end, and Hansie just he never let me face Warne. I had to face McGrath for basically 10 overs on the trot, and eventually the odds were not in my favor, and I didn't get one bad delivery. That's how good he was. And I just couldn't get that 100.
Oh man, we all felt for you. If it's any sort of courtesy, if you will, we all felt for you at that time, both those occasions. And the way I see it, I mean, that was many years later, but it's better than Gerhardus Liebenberg against Sri Lanka about 23 years ago as well. That he got the first bowler to Nuwan Zoiza Sri Lanka, and unfortunately, he went out without scoring a run. Literally, the wicket happened so quickly. The cameras didn't even know what was going on. An umpire really stuck him, and he was on his way back.
It's a tough game, that's for sure.
Yeah, almost like Aiden Markham getting run out on 97 on his debut. That was. I'll never forget that result.
I
will never forget that because I mean, leading up to that game, I think I was one of the first people to interview Markram when he made his start in the franchise arena, because he took a small sabbatical out of cricket for a while. He played for Northerns, obviously, but then he came back to franchise cricket, and he started his career in franchise. And from franchise, it kind of went very quickly. He had 3 games on the trot where he scored massive amount of runs, averaging over 108, and then he got selected in the SA Invitational side. He scored about 500 years in his first season as a franchise, and then a year later basically made his debut against Bangladesh. And then I was like watching the game still in the office, and Markham was one of my favorite players as well, and I was trying to stay unbiased and to keep my journalist hat on. And he was a 97. I was like, don't worry, he's going to score his 100 on his debut. And I remember my boss sitting behind me saying, "Oh, nervous 90s. Oh, it's 90s." He just kept teasing me the entire day. And then that happened. And I was like, I can't believe that happened. That was unbelievable. I want to ask you about that. Seeing I'm talking about an opener. and the toughness of opening? Because for me, I think opening the batting is an art. It's a specialist position. It's something that is not easy to do. And when you talk to any opening, especially on wickets like South Africa's wickets and of course Australia's wickets, England as well, when the ball is swinging from left to right, like early on already. Can you give us some insight into opening the batting, and also how important having a good opening partner is on the other end?
I've got a lot of middle order players have got a lot of respect for openers. I've got a lot of respect for middle order players. And I honestly believe a lot of it is personality driven. What suits you. So I was normally a number 3, and I was a very nervous number 3. I couldn't watch the game unfold. I used to almost bat out there with the other guys, and by the time I got to the wicket, I was like exhausted mentally. And opening the batting was actually forced on me. It wasn't something that I wanted to do, but I loved the fact that there was certainty that if we won the toss and we were batting, I was out there, and I didn't mind that. I never ever minded facing pace. It was something that was a skill set that I enjoyed. I had a good technique for it. I think I would have battled more batting 4 or 5 in the second innings of a test match. You batting with the tail. I had no experience dealing with those kind of pressures. So even though the ball's not swinging in as much as not seaming, you've now got a more defensive field. You've got spinners. So, I've got a lot of respect for the roles that you play in each part of your batting lineup. And, that's why just thinking about, I battled to go down the order, and I've got so much respect for Gary Kirsten, because if you can remember Gary at the last couple of years of his career, he went to number 5, and he was absolutely brilliant there. So it just shows you the kind of skill that Gary had, because I don't think that would have suited me. So I loved opening the batting. I never ever minded pace. It was only if the wicket was really unreliable and unpredictable that it was a problem. But didn't matter how quick the bowlers were, whether it was Alan Donald, I backed myself with that. In fact, the tougher bowlers were always the slightly slower ones, who seemed the ball around a lot more. So yeah, it was something that I practiced like mad. Always practice very, very quick stuff, and you get used to it. There's no doubts about that.
Yeah. Well, keeping on the opener topic, before I give it back to Ravi again, there was another opener that you played with at the Cobras when you moved to the Cobras, Andrew Patik, one of the unsung heroes of South African cricket. I feel one of those guys that were relentless in their career, played for so many years. I see how he coaches and how the players respect him. Can you give me some insight into him and what type of person and player he was?
Yeah, it's good to be complimentary with someone out there. So Andrew is a big surfer boy, very relaxed individual who takes his cricket seriously. But you also want someone out there that you can relax with. I think the key to being a successful player is being able to switch on and switch off. You can't possibly concentrate all the time while you're out there. It's going to exhaust you. You just can't. It's not possible to do that. So the best players, I guess, are the ones that can focus on the bowler running up, focus on his hand. Once the ball's been bowled, regardless of the shot you've played, to actually forget about it and relax a bit. So if you're batting with a guy like Andrew, and he's a pretty relaxed guy, and you're talking between overs, and you're having a good time, you're talking about different kinds of things out there, it definitely does help you. You don't want to be with someone that's very intense and makes you feel the pressure. So I love batting with Andrew. And Gary was also phenomenal. So you want to have a bit of fun out there. You want to spot a few people in the crowd, and it's just impossible to keep concentrating and to be serious all the time, because it just gets a bit too much.
Yeah, cool, Ravi. Just a few more questions.
Awesome. Just literally a handful. Before I give Adam the opportunity to share his contact information and his business avenues or what have you, I wanted to ask Adam specifically about What do you make of the current situation at the moment with Cricket South Africa, their performance, the Proteas team's performances, the governance issues at the moment? What's your message to the fans in that regard? I mean, this is possibly one of the most tumultuous times to be a Proteas fan at this moment.
It is. There's no doubt about it. It almost reminds me of when you're a player and you're going through a bad rut. You get a duck 3, 1, 4, and someone says to you, well, it can't get any worse than that. Actually, it can. And and that's where I almost feel that we are. It's almost like December was like scoring 2 pairs in a test match and thinking, well, I've got the bad stuff behind me. It can only go up now. But actually, it's gone down because maybe I've also broken a rib. And that's where I feel that where South African cricket is at the moment. I'm not sure what can solve it. I've been talking to lots of good people around the game, and I just want to say this categorically: there are some great people around the cricket game. There's even in Cricket South Africa, as much as people want to criticize, there are some really good cricket people there that are looking after schools and that are looking after development, and some wonderful people. But the people that are not so wonderful are not the cricket administration. You know, they don't have cricket at their heart, and there's no doubt about that. I don't think there's a passion for the game from those people. There's no care. There's so much that has gone wrong. How can we fix it? Well, we need a proper clean out. I think the game in South Africa has to be almost redesigned. We have to think about, we've had some bad luck, and I'll say bad luck in the fact that we are not part of the big three. So, you know, that was decided, that was not of our own doing. That's one of the things outside of our control. So financially, we were always going to not be in the same position we were normally, but we haven't helped ourselves with bad administration. So we've had bad luck, and it's also been because of us. So I'm not sure anyone's got a grasp on what's the new dynamics in cricket are in our country. Where does club cricket fit in? Where does school cricket fit in? Can we afford to do the development that we're speaking about? How does that work? We almost need a blueprint, and it's not the current administration that can take us there. They've got to step aside. They haven't. This, you know, the last 10 years, I was involved with an investigation into the Proteas when we were really doing badly in 2016, 2017. You know, our report, we did everything. It was hard work. Worked with Francois Pienaar. We did a lot of work. We didn't get paid a cent. Didn't want to. It was a service to the game. But we just got the feeling that it was just chucked in a paper bin. That was the kind of reaction we got. So, you know, I think it's maybe time that the players, as the ultimate last line of defense from the game collapsing. And I think the Protea players, the players who have maybe, it's easy for me to sit here and say it, but maybe the players that have done well financially, who can afford to maybe take a stand against what's going on. And I think we saw that the other day, but maybe it's going to mean more than that. You know, if I can remember back to the Australian cricket strike, that was led by their top most senior players,
right,
for the good of the younger guys. And I think that's the way that our senior players must be thinking now. They've had it good, most of them, but you know, what's going to happen to the next generation of cricketers? Can they make a stand against the administration and against the politicians? It's going to be tough. But I think maybe that last line of defense now has to be pulled out in some way or another.
No, absolutely. I mean, very recently, I mean, for the longest time, I've known the West Indies to have a clash with their board. The players and the board are always a conflict. Ever since I started supporting them as a youngster, there was always the case. You know, there's always player strikes, people walking off the field. This is nothing new. And in some point down the line, they got their governance issues sorted out. They got the right guys on board. They got the right sponsors on board, and suddenly they're playing an exciting brand of cricket.
Yeah.
in the last 5 years or so. I mean, Jason Holder is playing phenomenally well. But we can talk about them till the sun comes up. Adam, normally we extend an opportunity to all of our guests just to share how the fans can best get a hold of you, what your latest business.
Okay, thanks, Ravi.
Yeah,
I'm a wealth manager. I mean, I call myself like an alternative financial advisor. So I've had my own business for the last 10 years where I look after individuals and I do financial plans for them, both local and offshore. And the reason that I call myself an alternative kind of financial advisor is because even though numbers is my background, I did get a CFA, and I've always loved dealing with investments, especially in the times that we're going through now. I almost like to focus more on the life issues rather than just the numbers. So, we often speak about, as financial advisors, how has your investment gone? Have you beaten the index by this amount or whatever? And it sometimes doesn't reflect about how that's affecting your life. And I think it's time now. This COVID has taught us a lot about what's important in our lives. And it's not just about building a pile of money. It's got to be there for a reason. You don't want to just build a nest egg and put it in a dying tree. And I think that's what a lot of people do. They get on that hamster wheel in their corporate jobs and they sacrifice so much. And by the end of the day, they're completely burnt out and dissatisfied. So it's about actually waking up, and COVID has forced a lot of people to wake up. Unfortunately, put a lot of people in hard places. Some of them are going to find new ways of doing things, which is great. Some of there unfortunately will be casualties within there. So yeah, I look after individuals. I've got a nice small business, give a very personalized service. I've got a website, adambacherwealth.co.za, and you can have a look at there, and feel free to get hold of me. But it's something I love doing, and it was something that I was doing towards the end of my career, playing cricket, and it was just a nice way of actually getting the best out of both worlds.
Adam, thanks so
much. Last question from my side. I have to ask,
okay,
where did you get the time to do your CFA? I have to ask.
Playing at airports, with cricket, you at airports always, and you can stuff around or whatever. But I was maybe the last generation of guys that could work and play cricket.
Sure.
Because after that, it became very difficult to do that. So yeah, I studied all the time. I studied in breaks, and I found with the CFA, it's 3 years of tough slog. But I guess like any sport, if you're consistent in your approach, you eventually get the rewards. And it was pressure, but yeah, it was very fulfilling to. So even though I didn't score 100 on the cricket field, there was my 100 passing CFA.
There we go.
There we go. So thanks a lot, Adam, for coming on the show. I really enjoyed sitting in here on this conversation and listening to you guys talk about all these wonderful stories in cricket. And as a Cricket Fanatics magazine, that's what we want to try to do, is tell amazing stories of cricket. So thanks a lot for coming on the show and sharing your stories with us.
Great work, guys. It's been a pleasure being on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Stay safe. So, Ravi, that's all we got for you, the guys, today. Thanks, fans, for watching. All of you guys out there, I think it was amazing stories told. We got to get some insights into a lot of players. So, guys, what I need you to do is, because the only way we can grow is if you share this content with all your friends and your family. Obviously, you know that you need to like, comment, and subscribe, and click the notification bell. Like the video as much as you can. Tell your friends to like it. Smash that like button, because that's how we get into other people's feeds, and that's how they see our videos on recommended feeds, etc., etc. Don't forget to download the latest issue of the magazine. It's about Vision 2023. We've got some amazing episodes in there as well of the Legends with Ravi show and other shows too. Subscribe. It's free. The link is on your screen as well in the description below. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Thank you. Thanks again to Ravi for doing the show, and we'll see you guys very, very soon.
Good night, everyone.